CEO falls for struggling waitress who sells herself to help her grandmother's widow. Mia felt the familiar weight settle on her chest as she poured coffee into yet another chipped mug, each clatter of the diner unmistakably echoing the chaos of her life. The Green Bean Cafe buzzed with laughter and sizzling sounds, but for Mia, the din was muffled by the soft tremor of worry that lingered beneath her skin. Her grandmother was sick, the bills piled up, and the old diner was barely scraping by. She was the lifeline, balancing the world on her narrow shoulders. It was like clockwork. The lunch rush hit, and she was a blur of movement, taking orders, delivering plates, a smile plastered on her face, while her heart ached with fatigue. The aroma of bacon and freshly baked pie filled the air. But what Mia yearned for was a breath of fresh hope. Then he walked in. Jack. He was sharply dressed, a crisp white shirt that screamed of privilege, standing out among the well-worn patrons of. She asked, trying to hold on to the professionalism amidst her racing heart. "A slice of your best pie," he replied, a hint of a smile curving his lips. There was a pause, and it felt like the clock had stopped. "And maybe some of your time?" She blinked, caught off guard. There was a richness to his voice, and she found herself leaning in, intrigued. As they chatted, the world around her faded. Servers rushed past, dishes clattered. But all she could hear was him. His ambitions, his dreams, his desire to lift up those around him. It felt like a whirlwind, and just for a moment, it swept Mia away from her burdens. Then came the question that sent a chill down her spine. What if I told you I'm looking for someone to feature in an ad campaign? I want to showcase the stories of strong women, the sacrifices they make. Her heart skipped. Was there an opportunity here? She felt hope and guilt tangled together. Could she exploit her struggles for a glimmer of a better future? Would that make her a sellout? As thoughts whirled through her mind, she saw the sincerity in his eyes, but then doubt inched closer. Just as she was about to respond, unseen shadows flickered behind his charm. "I know why you're really working so hard, Mia. Let's talk." The message lingered in her mind as she fidgeted with her apron. Was he genuinely interested, or was there a darker reason for his attention? The cafe buzzed around her, but all she could focus on was Jack's piercing gaze and the mystery hidden behind it. Hey, before we continue with this incredible story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without warning. Just take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content that's coming. And since you're there, leave that powerful like that helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know each incredible person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact! The wind howled through the alleyway as Jessie hesitated at the entrance, her heart pounding like a drum in her ears. She could still hear the muffled voices behind her and the way they faltered when she announced she was leaving. It was like a dark cloud settled over them. Anxiety twisted in her stomach, but she had to see him. She took a deep breath and stepped forward into the dim light. The fluorescent bulb flickered overhead, casting unsettling shadows on the cracked concrete walls. With each step, Jessie felt the weight of their faces staring after her. Confusion and concern etched in their features. Nobody understood why she had to go. Not even Emma, Her closest friend, who had Jessie. Wait, came a voice. But she didn't turn back. She couldn't. Not now. Not when she was so close. Near the end of the alley, she found the door slightly ajar. It was a broken gateway into chaos. Pushing it open, her heart raced at the sight inside. The room was a mess, filled with broken furniture and strewn papers. In the center lay Nick, a figure she both loved and loathed, the tumult of their shared past weighing heavily in the air. Nick, she whispered, unsure if he was even awake. He didn't stir. Her heart sank. The room she moved closer, trembling, her hand reaching out to touch his shoulder. That's when she heard it. A siren blaring closer, buzzing in her ears like a swarm of hornets. Panic gripped her. Were they coming for him or for her? Suddenly, Nick stirred, groggy eyes opening wide. "Jessie?" His voice was hoarse, trembling like a tiny flame against a gust of wind. I came to find you," she whispered, her voice barely a thread. She fought back tears, the lump in her throat choking her words. A gunshot rang out. It shattered the air, ricocheting through the room like a cannonball. Jessie screamed, ducking instinctively. The sound drowned out the chaos around her. "Stay down," Nick shouted. In a flash, two men burst through the doorway, masked and wild-eyed with desperation. Time slowed as Jessie's mind raced. Were they? Were they after Nick? Or her? The men surged forward, and Nick shoved Jessie behind him. "Run!" he yelled. But she didn't move. Her feet were frozen, anchored by sheer terror. Then from behind the chaos, a familiar figure appeared. But Jessie's heart stopped at the sight. It was Emma. What was she doing here? Jessie wanted to shout at her, to scream for her to leave. But before she could, Emma looked straight into Jessie's eyes and spoke words that wouldn't leave her mind. "I'm so sorry." The panic across Emma's face told Jessie everything. Time seemed to unspool, each second stretching painfully. A wave of betrayal washed over Jessie. This was a trap. But before she could react, the men lunged forward. Everything exploded into chaos. The air was full of shouts and the sound of scuffling feet. Jessie felt herself pulled away from Nick as the scene blurred. And then the world went dark. She didn't know who had grabbed her or where Nick was, but she could feel the weight of secrets in the air. As she fought against the pull, Emma's voice echoed in her mind. What had she meant? The sirens grew louder, and fear gripped Jessie's heart as the truth loomed over her, heavy and intense. What else was Emma hiding? What had been whispered in the shadows? Everything flipped in a heartbeat, and the chase was just beginning. Jessie's world spiraled into chaos. She struggled against the grip that pulled her away, panic squeezing her chest. The last thing she saw was Nick, his face etched with confusion and fury as he yelled something she couldn't hear over the clamor. "Don't you dare touch her!" he shouted, but it was lost in the tumult. Suddenly, everything went dark. A thud echoed in her ears, and she felt the sharp crack of reality pulling her back. The rough ground scraped her knees as she was dragged across the floor. She blinked, trying to focus. Her panic rose again as she caught sight of the men. They were yelling, shoving Nick back, the violence washing over her like ice-cold water. Jessie strained against the grasp on her arm. "Get her! One masked man barked, and Jesse's heart raced. But in that frantic moment, something shifted. A new sound pierced through, the unmistakable roar of sirens, growing louder. They echoed off the walls, gaining momentum. Jessie felt hope flicker momentarily in her chest as she fought against her captor's grip. "Shut it! Let's move!" the other man shouted, his voice ragged. And then, amidst the chaos, Nick's voice broke through. There's something you need to see, Jessie. You have to trust me." The echoes of his plea tugged at her heart, but the men yanked her toward the back of the room, pulling her away from him. The fear surged again, almost suffocating. Her thoughts raced. What was Nick talking about? Trust him? After everything? But before she could respond, the sound of the door crashing open filled the air. It jolted her, and she turned to see Emma standing there, eyes wide and terrified. "Jessie!" she cried, breathless. "You have to get out of here." "Emma, what is happening?" Jessie shouted, her voice strained. Sweat trickled down Emma's temple as she shook her head, panic evident on her face. "I didn't mean for this to happen, I swear." That's when Jessie noticed it, a glimmer of steel. Emma had something in her hand, a knife. Fear ricocheted in Jessie's veins. "What are you doing with that?" "It's not for you!" Emma shouted, but the sharpness in her tone made Jessie question everything. "I'm trying to help you!" Her heart sank as the truth hung heavy. The room felt smaller. Secrets enveloped them like a thick fog. Jessie felt betrayed and confused. "Help me? How could this be help?" But before Emma could respond, the masked men lunged forward, and in an instant, chaos erupted again. Nick struggled, shouting for Jessie, trying to reach her. The knife glinted under the fluorescent light, and as Emma swung it toward one of the attackers, everything shattered. Time slowed. Jessie saw the flash of panic in the man's eyes, heard the muffled thud as he stumbled back. Then it happened. A shot rang out, louder than before. Emma fell to the ground, clutching her side, eyes wide and shocked. Jessie's heart dropped. Blood pooled beneath her friend, the vibrant red contrasting sharply with the gray concrete. "No! Emma!" Jessie screamed, rushing forward, but the men held her back. Shock paralyzed Jessie as everything around her blurred. Was Emma trying to kill someone, or had she been trying to protect Jessie? "What have you done?" she gasped, feeling the world tilt on its axis. It's not what you think," Emma stammered, pain cutting through each word as she gasped for air. "I just wanted to show you." Jessie felt a jolt of confusion and anger pulse through her. "Show me what? What are you hiding?" But before Emma could answer, the sirens grew louder, fear thickening the air. Jessie turned to Nick, desperation filling her voice. "Nick! What's going on? What does this all mean?" "Jessie, I'll explain later. We need to go now." And with that, everything exploded into chaos once more, leaving Jessie teetering on the edge of heartbreak and betrayal. In that moment, she had a choice to make, but the stakes had never been higher, and she didn't know who to trust anymore. The truth felt like it was just out of reach, slipping through her fingers. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows beyond. Someone familiar, but wholly unexpected. The world around her spun, and her heart raced faster than ever. What other secrets had been lurking in the dark? Jessie's heart raced as she blinked in confusion. trying to connect the pieces. The chaos swirled around her, shouts, gunfire. But then a shadow emerged from the back, catching her eye. It was a familiar figure, but she couldn't place it right away. "Jessie, you shouldn't be here." The voice was low and tinged with urgency. Who are you?" she gasped, squinting through the dim light. As the figure stepped closer, into the fluorescent glow, the room's energy shifted. It was her mother, Sarah, whom she hadn't seen in years. The memory of their last encounter came rushing back like a tidal wave. Disappointment, sorrow. Why was she here now? "Mom, why are you—" The confusion twisted tighter in her chest. "Listen to me, Jessie. You need to go now." Sarah's eyes darted to the men, worry etched on her face. "What do you mean? You don't understand." Jessie's words caught in her throat. Emma lay on the ground, blood pooling beneath her, a haunting contrast to the peeling floor. Before Sarah could respond, one of the masked men broke away from Nick and lunged towards Sarah. Time snapped like a frayed wire. Jessie screamed as her mother drew something from her pocket. A pistol! The metallic click echoed in the room, sudden and sharp. "Get back!" Sarah shouted, her voice steady but laced with urgency. Jessie felt a rush, fear mixed with disbelief. Her mother had a gun? Before she could wrap her mind around it, the masked man hesitated, surprise evident in his eyes as he weighed his next move. "Jessie, come with me!" Nick's voice broke through. Adrenaline surged. Jessie turned sharply, torn between her past and the chaos unfolding in front of her. She could see Nick, determination etched in his face, stretching out his hand as a promise of safety, with understanding. But Emma lay bleeding, gasping for breath, each inhale rattling and desperate. "Mom, please, you need to help Emma," Jessie pleaded, her voice tremulous. "She needs you." Suddenly, a shot rang out. Sticky silence enveloped the air. Jessie's eyes whipped back to Sarah, but instead of the steady aim she expected, there was horrified shock on her mother's face. The masked man had lunged again, and chaos erupted like a bomb. The world spun wildly. The man fell to his knees, shot. Blood pooled around him, staining the concrete dark. But as Jessie's heart sank, realization hit her like a brick. This wasn't supposed to be a rescue. No, this was manipulation. Her mother had orchestrated this chaos. She had come looking for Jessie, with plans of her own. "Mom, you knew?" Jessie's voice trembled, raw anger seeping through her disbelief. And then everything spiraled. Another figure emerged from behind Sarah. Another man, tall and familiar, revealing himself like a shadow from her memory. It was Derek, her mother's old partner, the man who had haunted her childhood. "Sarah, we have to go!" he shouted, urgency pulling at his voice. "They won't be far behind!" Realization crashed over Jessie like a wave. Everything twisted inside her. Her mother, her past, her choices. They had used her as bait, drawing these men into a trap. She was the center of a game much bigger than she realized. "Jessie, please, trust me." Sarah's eyes were wild, desperate, but the truth hung heavy and suffocating. What trust was left? Moments blurring, Jessie felt the gravity of betrayal anchoring her down. Sirens screeched closer. The chaos intensified, forcing her into a choice. "Jessie, Come with me! This isn't safe, Nick shouted, panic in his voice. But all she could see were shards of broken trust. The air thickened with tension as uncertainty loomed over them all. Would she follow her mother or Nick? Brew was telling the truth. And why had everything turned so dark, so fast? Unrest surged around her. Choices loomed like shadows, waiting to ensnare her. The sirens grew louder, and in that charged moment, Jessie stood at the edge of betrayal and truth, heart racing, pulse pounding. Then, a blinding flash of light exploded into the room. A burst from somewhere outside, shaking the walls. Jessie flinched, heart in her throat. What had just happened? Everything came to a crashing halt. In the aftermath, chaos would reign. Who would survive this twisted fate? Jessie's world tilted, darkness swallowing the light as she felt reality slip away. As the blinding light faded, Jessie felt the pulse of adrenaline thrumming in her veins. Her heartbeat matched the frantic wails of approaching sirens. Confusion clung to her, wrapping around her like a vice. What was happening? She twisted away from the chaos, eyes darting between Nick, who was straining against the grip of the masked men, and her mother, who faced the side of the room, gun clutched tightly in her hands. "Mom, what are you doing?" Jessie shouted, her voice laced with an urgency that echoed in the small space. Sarah didn't answer. Her gaze was now fixed on the door. The sirens shrieked louder, drowning everything else out. It was as if the world condensed into that moment. The possibility of escape, the weight of betrayal, the promise of clarity buried under layers of confusion. In the chaos, the masked men hesitated. They exchanged glances as if they sensed the shift in the atmosphere. Before Jessie could register the moment, a blinding flash erupted outside. It wasn't a typical flash of light, but something else, something explosive. Windows rattled, glass shattered. Jessie screamed as debris flew through the air, sharp and deadly. "Get down!" Nick shouted, diving toward Jessie as everything around them erupted in chaos. But in the confusion, Jessie felt something grab her, something hard and rough. She turned, ready to fight, but it was just her mother. Sarah was yanking her back, eyes frantic. But then she paused, her face going pale. "Move, Jessie!" Sarah cried, and Jessie felt the heat of urgency like a burning coal. Suddenly, there was another explosion, and the ground shook violently. It wasn't just the building shaking. It felt like everything she knew was being uprooted. Chaos turned to a dark, swirling mass. Jessie couldn't process it. It was too much. The next moment, the door shattered, flinging itself open. A figure cloaked in darkness charged into the room. A man she had never seen before. His eyes were wild, full of determination and fear. "They're coming! We need to leave!" Confused and terrified, Jessie looked to Nick, finding the same disbelief mirrored in his gaze. Yet before anyone could react, the man turned to Sarah, eyes locking in an intensity that sent a chilling ripple down Jessie's spine. "You shouldn't have come here! You brought her into this!" he shouted, voice full of accusation. "Ray, I had no choice!" Sarah shouted back, but her voice trembled. Jessie's heart sank. Ray? Who was he? Without skipping a beat, the man lunged at Sarah, but she raised the gun, fingers trembling with a mix of fear and rage. "Stay back!" "No, you don't understand. The whole situation," Ray pleaded, eyes darting with panic. But Sarah cut him off. "I'll kill you if you come any closer." Ray hesitated, his expression morphing from anger to something else, something Jessie couldn't quite grasp. Before she could process it, shadows loomed at the edges of the doorway. More masked figures, their intentions hidden but menacing. "Time's up," one called out. The pressure mounted. Nick was shouting something, but the urgency drowned his words. Jessie felt her world tilting precariously as memories and visions danced in her mind. Secrets, her past with her mother, the choices that led to this moment, spooled together into a tight knot. Then it happened. The truth slammed into her like a freight train. You're part of this, aren't you?" she gasped, realization crashing down as she looked between her mother and Ray. "What were you planning?" The words tumbled out, raw and terrified. But before Sarah could answer, Ray stepped forward, eyes wide. "You don't know, do you? Everything you've been told is a lie." Jessie felt her breath catch. What lie? What had they hidden from her? In that instant, everything transformed. Their faces twisted with something darker, their realities unraveling in front of her. Jessie's world blurred into a mass of confessions and betrayals, secrets spilling like ink across her life. As the masked figures surged into the room, Jessie realized she was at the center of something she'd never truly understood. Secrets wrapped around her like chains. The sirens blared. The world spun, and there was only darkness ahead. And then, just before the chaos consumed them all, came the startling truth. Was she the key to something much larger and darker than she had ever imagined? Jessie's mind reeled as chaos erupted around her. The sirens wailed outside, almost drowning out the panic in her heart. Nick was still reaching for her, his expression a mix of terror and urgency. Sarah and Ray were shouting at each other. Tensions mounting like a thick fog that suffocated everyone in the room. And then those. Jessie forced the words out, her throat tight. The chaos blurred into a desperate need for answers, the truth dangling just out of reach. "I'll explain everything, but we can't stay here." Sarah's voice, tinged with desperation, glancing over her shoulder at the doorway where male figures loomed menacingly. But just as the words left her lips, there was a sudden boom. The door frame splintered, slamming open as another figure bolted in. This time, it was a policeman. Jessie's heart leaped, but he wasn't just anyone. She recognized him from the precinct, Officer Grant, who always had a comforting smile, the type of person you thought would always put things right. "Get down!" he roared, plunging into the melee with a gun drawn. The room erupted into utter chaos. Nick was yanking at Jessie's arm, dragging her back, while Sarah and Ray shouted over each other, trying to get through the din. And then it happened. Jessie heard a muffled pop, and everything froze. Officer Grant fell. The chaos faded to an eerie silence. Blood pooled beneath him as he lay sprawled, the weight of the world crashing down around them. What just happened? Jessie's voice trembled, each word punctuated by disbelief. The panic thickened, stinging her eyes as reality shattered. "Run!" Nick's voice cut through, urgency transforming into an instinct-driven order. But Jessie was frozen. She knew Officer Grant. Trust tightened around her chest like a vice. What had just happened. Had he meant to help them, or was he part of this mess? "No!" Jessie screamed. "What did you do?" She darted forward but was shoved aside by Sarah, who rushed toward Officer Grant. There was a wild look in her eyes, fear, regret, something darker lurking beneath the surface. "It wasn't supposed to go this way!" Sarah yelled, scrambling to check his pulse. In confusion, Jessie turned back to Ray. "What the hell is happening?" "Jessie, you don't know the truth." Ray's voice shook with urgency. "You've been living a lie!" Jessie's heart raced. "A lie? What are you talking about?" The lump in her throat pressed harder. Suddenly, another gunshot rang out, shattering the tense atmosphere. "Stay back!" Ray shouted, but it was too late. Another figure burst through the door, a woman, weapon raised, lurching forward. Jessie recognized her instantly. It was Emma, bloodied and determined, voice hoarse. "What are you all doing?" Emma gasped, breathless. There was a wildness to her gaze, something frantic that sent a chill down Jessie's spine. Then, without warning, Emma dropped her weapon, shaking her head. "You don't understand! The past is coming for you!" Jessie's stomach lurched. The weight of Emma's words hit her, coiling around her heart. "Past? What do you mean?" Before Emma could respond, Sarah turned, eyes wide with a shock that didn't make sense. "You shouldn't be here. You were supposed to stay away." Confusion deepened, tightening Jessie's chest. What had really brought them here? Secrets filled the air, thick and cloying. And in the chaos, Officer Grant struggled to rise on the floor, suddenly revealing something beneath his coat, a small flash drive. With sheer will, he raised it up, his voice barely above a whisper. "You need to see this. Everything." Time snapped back into motion as every eye turned to him, the tension palpable. Jessie couldn't move, couldn't breathe. What truth was hidden in that tiny device? Just then, the door exploded inward, and all hell broke loose. The masked figures surged into the room, bullets flying, chaos reigning once again. But that flash drive hovered in Jessie's mind like a beacon of hope, or the beginning of the end. "Grab it!" someone shouted amidst the din. But before anyone could react, the world swayed and darkness swallowed the light, leaving Jessie teetering on the edge of everything she thought she knew. The truth lingered just out of reach, a tantalizing promise wrapped in the destruction around her. What secrets lay waiting, and who could she trust now? As the smoke cleared, Jessie realized that nothing would ever be the same again. The smoke lingered like a heavy fog, drowning the air around Jessie as everything spun out of control. The masked figures surged forward, weapons drawn, and panic clutched at her heart with icy fingers. That flash drive, a beacon of hope, now felt like a curse, riddled. "Nick," commanded, his voice a mix of fear and courage. He pushed past the chaos, reaching for Jessie, urging her to move. But Jessie's feet felt glued to the ground. She couldn't tear her gaze from the unfolding nightmare. Sarah was scrambling, her eyes wild, as she tried to assess Officer Grant's condition. The pool of blood widened around him, a dark stain soaking into the concrete. "Stay with me, Grant. Please," she cried, panic creeping into her tone. Ray was shouting over the chaos, his voice breaking through. "We have to go, now!" Another gunshot fired, and Jessie ducked instinctively, heart racing. The masked men shouted, chaos engulfing the room, like a dark wave ready to crash. But then, something strange happened. The sirens outside grew louder. Shouts from officers moving in drowned out everything, and Jessie felt a spark of hope. Just then, she heard a loud crash behind her. The window shattered, glass raining down. "Get down!" Nick yelled, pulling Jessie low. But just as they thought they were safe, a shadow burst past her. Emma, lunging toward the fallen officer. "Grant!" she screamed. Jessie's heart lurched. "Wait! Emma!" It was too late. Emma reached him, cradling his head like a lifeline. "What are you doing?" Nick shouted, disbelief marking his features. Emma looked over with tears in her eyes. "He's protecting us. You don't understand." The words hung in the air, heavy with confusion. But before Jessie could grasp the meaning, the lighting flickered, momentarily plunging them into darkness. When the lights came back on, everything changed. Emma's gaze had shifted from grief to something else, something darker. "You all need to know the truth," she shouted, her voice fierce. In that moment, Officer Grant began to move, his hand trembling as he reached for Emma. "Please, you have to let me explain." But what came next shattered everything. Emma pressed a hidden button on the side of the flash drive, and suddenly the air hummed with energy. An image projected onto the wall behind them, illuminating the room. Jessie's breath caught as she saw clear faces on the screen, photos of her mother, Ray, and Grant. "What is this?" she gasped as the realization struck. "It's proof," Emma said, her voice hard and steady. "You're a part of this, Jessie. You've always been meant to be." A chill ran down her spine. "What? Meant to be what?" And just like that, Officer Grant's voice came through, deeper and raspy. "Jessie, you're not who you think you are." Every pair of eyes turned to him, and the weight of his words echoed in Jessie's mind. "Your father, he was involved," Grant whispered, each word like a nail. "They've been looking for you." They never stopped. The ground beneath her gave way. Jessie's whole world flipped. The truth she had been searching for morphed into a nightmarish reality. Everything she thought she knew, her mother, her relationships, even her own identity, slipped away like sand through her fingers. "Stop! You're lying!" she exclaimed, her heart hammering against her ribs. "You can't just say that!" "A year ago, your father disappeared to protect you," Grant continued, scrambling to sit up, blood trickling down his side. "We were part of something powerful. They never wanted you to find out." The masked figures grew restless, sensing the shift. Jessie felt like she was being pulled into a whirlpool of uncertainty. Her head spun as the implications settled in. "Run!" Ray yelled, realizing the danger that loomed. But Jessie was frozen. The entire room pulsed with tension and possibility, darkness rushing in around them. It felt like the shadows were closing in, caging her in a reality that was suddenly out of her control. "In this moment," Emma continued, her words sharp, "you have to decide who you really are." And just as Jessie was about to answer, the wall behind her cracked open. A secret passageway revealed itself. The light from the corridor beckoned, shining like a promise. "Go!" Nick urged, pulling her along. But Jessie hesitated, her mind racing. If she stepped into that light, What would she leave behind? What truth would she uncover? As the chaos swirled, she felt the weight of the world crushing her. Every secret, every lie threatening to engulf her. And in that split second, with everything hanging in the balance, she realized she could change the course of her life forever. What would she choose? The path of truth or the shadow of deceit? Her heart pounded as the storm drew closer, closing in around her. The choice had never been so clear, nor so terrifying. And then Jessie stepped forward. Jessie took a deep breath, her heart racing as she stepped toward the glowing light of the corridor. Nick's hand was firm on her back, urging her forward. The chaos of the room pulsed behind them, threats and shadows looming like a storm. But that flickering light promised something different. A way out, a way to freedom. "Come on," Nick said, his voice tight with urgency. She could feel the heat of the moment pressing in. Every second felt like an eternity. Jessie paused, looking back over her shoulder at the broken faces. Sarah's, Emma's, and even Officer Grant, who now lay pale against a pool of his own blood. Just as she was about to move, the air crackled. Then it happened. A deafening roar split the air. The entire building shook violently, and the ground beneath them lurched. The entrance collapsed in a haze of dust and debris, blocking their escape. Jessie's breath caught. What? Before she could finish, the doorframe exploded outward, showering them with chunks of concrete and wood. "Get down!" someone yelled, but it was too late. In the haze, Jessie caught a glimpse of movement, a dark shape darting through the dust. Time felt like it slowed. Then, out of the chaos, emerged a tall figure with a sleek, black mask, gliding forward like a ghost. He moved with purpose, eyes locked on Jessie. "Jessie!" Nick yelled, pulling her tightly against him, desperation written all over his face. But in the loud confusion, another shout rang out, piercing through the clamor. "Stop!" It was Emma. She had risen, wounded but fierce. "Jessie, don't look at him!" But Jessie couldn't stop her eyes. They were drawn to the flashing blade in the man's hand. He lunged forward, just as a shot rang out. Jessie didn't even see where it came from. Her heart was pounding so hard it drowned everything out. Then, in a shocking twist, the masked figure fell to the ground. Still, silence flooded the space. "Who shot him?" Jessie gasped, her voice hoarse. The dust settled, revealing a figure stepping from the shadows. It was Derek, Sarah's old partner. He was holding a gun, face hard like steel. "Get away from my daughter!" he barked, eyes wild. Jessie's breath hitched. "Daughter?" "Jessie," Sarah's voice trembled, her expression twisted with horror. Everything crashed down around Jessie. A tidal wave of emotion swelled. "What the hell is going on?" She felt the world slip away, drowning in disbelief. "You're not just some girl in the wrong place at the wrong time," Derek shouted. "You are the key to everything." The words hung heavy in the air. Jessie felt her world shift once more. Key? What did he mean? Her mind raced. What does that mean? And what secrets are you hiding? But Derek stepped back, shaking his head. "It's too late to explain everything. They were coming for you. They still are." "Shh. What do you know?" Jessie pleaded, desperation creeping into her voice. "What are you hiding from me?" Derek's eyes darkened, shifting to Sarah. "You were supposed to protect her. This was never supposed to happen." In that moment, everything twisted. Jessie felt betrayal course through her veins. You knew? This isn't just about my father, is it? There's something bigger you haven't told me. The shadows began to shift again, masked figures regrouping in the distance, eyes glinting with malice. Run, Jessie! Nick shouted, grabbing her wrist again. But Jessie couldn't move, rooted in disbelief. What about my mother? What about this? Before anyone could answer, the masked figures surged forward, weapons drawn and ready. The room, her life, everything was crumbling into chaos once again. A scream sliced through the air. Then, against the chaos, Jessie noticed something glimmer in the light. Derek's gun was aimed directly at Sarah. Derek, don't! Jessie's heart stopped, but with an agonizing moment of silence, Derek whispered, I have to end this, before it's too late. Time suspended. Everything changed. Jessie's world flipped once again. One bullet. One moment. And everything she once believed was shaken to its core. Mom, she screamed, realizing the truth that she had been grappling with all along. Who she was, who they were. The chaos re-entered the fray. An explosion of fear mingled with betrayal. And as the bullet flew, Jessie knew nothing would ever be the same. Jessie screamed as the gun went off, the sound deafening in the chaos. The bullet flew across the room, time moving sluggishly as her mind raced. She watched in horror as it struck her mother, Sarah, right in the chest. Her eyes widened in disbelief, and for one gut-wrenching moment, everything froze. Mom! Jessie's voice cracked like dry wood under pressure. Sarah's face contorted in shock and pain. She staggered back, eyes wild, mouth shaping silent words that never formed. Blood blossomed on her shirt, darkening the fabric with a deep crimson hue. The sight was like a knife twisting in Jessie's gut. No! 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 Nick cried, yanking Jessie closer. Derek's expression morphed from determination to sheer panic. For an instant, it seemed as if he might rush to Sarah. But the masked figures, regaining their composure, closed in, closing off any chance of escape. Jessie's heart raced. We need to help her! Panic twisted her stomach. But before anyone could move, Sarah's eyes met Jessie's, filled with a mixture of pain and something else. Fear? Regret? An unspoken apology? It sent a shiver through Jessie. Get out! You can't be here! Sarah rasped before collapsing to the floor. Jessie felt her world tilt. The floor beneath her felt unsteady, like a boat in a storm. She tried to take a step forward, but Nick held her tight. No, Jessie, we have to go. The masked figures were upon them now, eyes glinting behind their dark coverings. Jessie felt the weight of betrayal crashing down. Her mother lay bleeding, the gravity pulling her in two directions, one toward the woman who had always been there, and the other toward a future that felt increasingly uncertain. Then it happened. A loud crash echoed outside, and the room darkened for a heartbeat. The lights flickered excessively, throwing shadows that danced on the walls. And then, through the confusion, a woman burst into the room. It was Jessie's grandmother, distant, stoic, yet fierce. Get away from her, she shouted, seeing Sarah crumpled on the ground. Grandma? Jessie breathed, shock washing over her. You shouldn't have come, her grandmother screamed, voice laced with urgency, determination fueling her words. The masked figures hesitated, uncertainty creeping into their cruel expressions. Jesse's grandmother knelt beside Sarah, cradling her, as if holding all the love and fear in the world. "Stay with me, Sarah, please." "Mom," Jesse barely whispered, stomach churning. And then everything changed again. In that moment, as her grandmother held Sarah, the air shifted. Light gleamed from the flash drive that was dropped on the floor amidst the chaos. It glinted like a star, a beacon of hidden truth. "Sarah, tell her the truth!" her grandmother pressed, eyes flashing with urgency. Jesse's breath caught in her throat. "What truth, Jesse?" Sarah's voice was faint. "They've been watching you. We all have. Your father, he's not who you think he is." Stop!" Jesse shouted, tears blurring her vision. "Just stop!" But her grandmother only looked at her, anguish etched in her features. "He's part of a larger game, Jesse. A powerful organization. They want you because you are the key to everything." Jessie felt a rush of cold wash over her, her pulse thundering in her ears. "What do you mean?" Suddenly, Sarah stiffened, her eyes glazing over. "Jessie, if I don't make it..." A loud crash interrupted her, and the masked figure surged forward like a tide. "Run!" Nick yelled again, pulling Jessie toward the secret passage. But the words fell into a void as she turned toward her mother. "Mom, don't leave me!" And then the most shocking twist of all emerged. Sarah, gasping for breath, reached into her pocket and pulled out an ornate pendant. It shimmered with unknown power. "Keep this safe," she breathed. "They will come for you." The masked figures rushed forward, guns drawn, when suddenly a blinding light flared from the pendant. The entire room shuddered. It was as if a crack had opened in reality itself. In that moment, Jessie felt an electric pulse through her, connecting her to everything that had happened before, the sacrifices, the hidden truths. She grasped the pendant tightly, feeling its weight in her palm like a promise. But before she could speak, the masked figures were upon them, shadows closing in. "Get her!" one shouted, and Jessie understood. This was more than a fight for survival. The secrets, the lies that had wrapped around her life began to unravel. As the room filled with chaos and the light brightened, Jessie realized, with a jolt of panic, that the truth was emerging. One she never could have anticipated. One that would change everything forever. The line between friend and foe blurred beyond recognition. Heart racing, Jessie stood at the brink of an unimaginable choice, a weight of destiny settling heavy on her shoulders. And then darkness surged forth, swallowing the light whole. Jessie felt the ground tremble beneath her, heart racing as shadows stretched closer. The chaos enveloped them, figures darting in the flickering light. Her mother lay there, the weight of unspoken truths heavy in the air. "Get back!" Nick shouted, pulling her tight as masked figures charged forward, eyes cold and menacing. The pendant in her grasp pulsed, warmth radiating through her fin. "We have to get out now!" "Mom!" Jessie screamed, falling to her knees beside Sarah. Blood pooled around her mother, mixing with the crushed dreams that lingered in the air. "Sarah, breathe," her voice barely a whisper. "You're stronger than they know. You have to believe that." Jessie felt tears streak down her face, blurring her vision. "You're going to be okay. We'll get out together." But deep down, fear gnawed at her. Fear of losing her mother. Fear of the truth that loomed. Then Emma, bloodied but fierce, stood tall. "We can't let them win." "Grab the drive. It holds the answers." The urgency swelled like a tide. Jessie looked back, torn between the past and a future she couldn't yet grasp. The masked figures surged forward, desperation pushing them through the haze. "Now!" Nick urged, eyes wild as they darted from her to the impending threat. With a sudden rush, Jessie lunged for the flash drive, its glimmer cutting through the chaos. Her fingers closed around it, and an electric zap shot through her. "I have it!" she yelled, adrenaline surging. "Good, let's move!" Nick shouted, tugging her toward the back of the room where the passage beckoned. Just as they turned, Derek fired at the nearest masked figure. The shot rang out, echoing like a warning bell. But instead of retreating, the masked figure pressed forward, rage illuminating their eyes. Jessie's heart pounded, the reality of it all crashing down. This was more than a fight. It was a war, and she was at the center. They stumbled into the corridor, darkness wrapping around them. "What now?" Jessie urged, panic lighting her voice. "Just keep running," Nick said, leading the way. They slipped through the narrow passage, pulses racing, breaths rapid. Behind them, the sounds of chaos faded into echoes. Jessie glanced back, her heart aching. "We can't just leave them. Your mom wanted you to be safe, Jessie. We need to think ahead." Nick's words were urgent, but they cut deep, slicing away at her hope. Heart hammering, she clenched the drive tightly. "But the truth, we need to find out what it means." Suddenly, the passage opened into a dimly lit room. Jessie could see a bed, remnants of lives once lived, scattered about. The air was thick with dust and memories. "This way!" Nick pulled her through another door that led outside. The night air hit them with a refreshing rush, but they didn't pause. They sprinted down an alleyway, desperate for freedom. And then Jessie steadied her thoughts. "We need to find a way to make sense of all this. The drive, my mom, everything." Nick slowed, turning to her, eyes intense. "We will, but right now we need to get somewhere safe. We'll figure this out together." They emerged onto a crowded street, bright lights a stark contrast to the chaos behind them. Jessie swallowed hard, but as they turned down the sidewalk, a thought struck her. A voice inside whispered that the journey was far from finished. They had so many questions, and hidden answers still awaited them. The fight was only just beginning. And as they disappeared into the night, shadows danced in the corners of their minds. What lay ahead? The mysteries called to them, truths yet to be uncovered, dangers yet to be faced. So tell me, are you ready for the next chapter of their journey? You need to subscribe now so you don't miss what's coming next. This is the moment to show your support. Mash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions, your theories about what happens next, and share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to know this outcome. Don't wait another second. True fans understand the importance of supporting the channel. Let's dive into this mystery together.